Alrighty, hey y'all. So I thought I recorded this damn video, but it didn't record. So great. So we're starting over. Hey y'all, thanks so much for tuning in. I know it has been a while, child. It's been a while. If you take a look at the last video I uploaded, it has been that long since I have been on my channel. I have had some life events, I've had some heartbreaks, I've had some frustrations, I've had some success, I've had some failures. I've had so much happen in my life, but of course all of it has been for the positive, for the betterment of me as a woman, as a person, to evolve in my endeavors, anything and in between. So today I'm talking about my pregnancy journey as well as my birth story. As a woman going through life, I had a lot of apprehensions about having children. I just was unsure about if that was something that would be within my cards. There are some things that I have been through, and I just was afraid that I would not be the mother that I needed to be for my child. I definitely was unsure because of who I became as a woman or whatever. This is me thinking in my early 20s. And I don't think a lot of people realize how much of a huge job it is to be a mother. When you are someone's parent, you're their first agent of socialization. You are pretty much the first step to how they view the world around them, to how they perceive things. You're responsible for their well-being. You could completely ruin a person based on who you are as their parent. You get what I'm saying? And I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a job it is to be a mother, to be someone's mother. So I was just like super worried about that. The year prior to finding out I was pregnant, I had a lot going on. Good things. I had just started an organization. I was networking. I was getting myself out there. I had a lot going on as far as corporate America is concerned. One second. My son keeps catnapping. Hold on. I kind of had an inkling that I was pregnant in January. But of course I didn't check. I'm like, well, let me see if my cycle comes on and then we'll go from there, right? So it didn't come. So February, I was like, let me actually check and see if I'm pregnant. My cycle hasn't come on, and mine isn't like, some people that I know where it's spotty. Like mine is on time every month. On time, on time, on time, honey. And plus I keep track of it. I didn't have any sickness at all, honestly. I just was like really drowsy, really tired. Uh-oh, my computer is glitching a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't affect my video. But I didn't have like any sickness, so to speak. It just was, I was really tired, really drowsy. If it was too hot in the shower, like I would damn near fall out. When I was cooking, I needed a chair to sit down because it would get really hot in the kitchen. I couldn't really take it. First trimester really wasn't that bad. I did kind of fall into like a depressive state. There were a lot of different things that were going on during that time. And it was things out of my control. Things that were out of our household's control. Those different things happening. So during that time, I had to kind of learn, if I can't control it, then I shouldn't put too much energy into it, pretty much. So during that time, I hadn't really secured the midwife. The way I wanted to have my child was a water birth, pretty much. That's what I wanted to happen. I wanted to be as natural as possible. My mother had all three of her children natural. By natural, I mean vaginal birth, no medicine. It wasn't a hospital. So I was going for the completely natural birth of at home. No medicine, water birth, water, no water, doesn't matter. My second trimester, of course, as every pregnant woman knows, or every man knows, that's the stage where it's just like, wow, like you see your belly, you start to feel the flutters, so you start to see the baby moving, and your skin either starts glowing, your hair just starts growing because them prenatal vitamins are definitely kicking in. That's like the euphoria stage of pregnancy, pretty much. I did not have prenatal visits because, in all honesty, I wasn't too much concerned about continuing to go. Like, excessively to the doctor to have things checked over and over. I don't have a family that has a lot of complications during pregnancy. I only know one person who's had like that kind of complication. It is a close relative, but I wasn't too concerned about it. Plus, I didn't want to keep going to the doctor over and over just for checkups, because that's kind of how women make themselves really anxious during their pregnancy, asking, okay, so is my baby growing, and different questions like that. So I didn't start to see a doctor until I was about 23 weeks. 23 weeks and 5 days. We did an ultrasound. They measured my baby. His weight was just fine, and everything was fine. A lot of people were concerned, being that you know, the veganism and no meat and different things like that. They were concerned that my son's health might not be, you know, where it should be, but my son was completely healthy. I didn't have any complications. I passed each test. I didn't have any issues with my iron. Like, I didn't have any issues during my pregnancy, you know, that a lot of people thought would have been a problem due to, you know, the veganism diet or whatnot. So let me see. Why is this? Third trimester is where it just was like, whoo, child, get this baby up out of me, honey. So during my pregnancy, I did also keep like a journal. I wouldn't consider it, it was kind of like a journal because I was kind of writing to myself, but I was also writing to my son. My fiance and I, we wrote in here during my pregnancy. Pretty much, you know, the third trimester is where I started to definitely experience like the discomfort or whatever. I had a lot of issues with indigestion. I could not lay on my right side. I would also have to always lay on my left side, or I would have pain on my right side. I also would have issues with digesting the food properly. My bowel movements would be green instead of the proper brown color because the bile wasn't able to do its job. So I had to make sure I laid on the left side so that my food could digest properly. I also was very gassy. It trapped gas during the third trimester. So much trapped gas. It was ridiculous. He definitely was in my ribs a lot, and you know, feeling him a lot in my back. Pretty much that was where the most uncomfortable phases were in, you know, my pregnancy. He dropped in my stomach on September 24th. It was around when I was 37 weeks. Now leading up to the labor, child. So September 31st is when my mucus plug left or whatever. So I noted in here that Sunday I noticed a change happening with my body. My mucus plug started to separate and it fell out. I also noted here that I hadn't been to a prenatal visit in 2 weeks because I didn't really feel like there were any changes. I didn't really feel like there were any complications or whatever. So I did myself or whatnot. I also put here that I feel pressure in my cervix a lot. When your uterus contracts, it's tightening and pushing down. My mom had me when I was 38 weeks. I don't know any woman in my family that has went full term 40 weeks. So I already had a feeling that I was going to be having him. Now this journal was written on October 3rd, okay? So I was having contractions starting October 3rd, all right? So here October 4th, I noted that I started having contractions at 11 o'clock that night, and they went until the 4th. I pretty much slept on and off, didn't really get that much sleep. And how my fiance also had me to do my affirmations. I was hungry, I was tired, I hadn't slept, you know, and this was the 4th. So I started pretty much contracting on the 3rd. So I started contracting basically about 3 to 4 days before I had him. On the 5th, we went to go pick up some more things for him. I also had my bloody show on the 5th. So I had my bloody show. So I was like, okay, yeah, I am having this baby. Like, he's coming any day now. And of course, I started getting a little antsy, a little anxious. So we did some more affirmations, honey. Oh, hold on. All right, so someone was hungry. Okay, and I was having contractions on and off. Let's see. All day, like on and off all day. They weren't super intense, but I could talk through them, stuff like that, but they weren't that bad. But at the same time, I knew I was having a contraction. So pretty much I noted here that I slept on and off on the 4th as well, like on the 3rd, due to contractions. At one point I had to sleep sitting up because I was that uncomfortable. I went to the doctor, the ER, the night of Friday the 5th. of October, because I wanted to know how far along I was. I was starting to get tired. I was losing my motivation, and I found out I was 3 centimeters, y'all. Like at that point, you know, I all motivation was gone. It's like all of this pain for me to only be 3 centimeters, bitch, what? Like, because at that point they were starting to get really, really intense. So they sent me back home or whatever. So through the night, you know, leading into the 6th, I just was like, I couldn't take it. I just, you know, I was in the tub, resting through contractions, you know, went from the tub to on the floor, went to our second bedroom back here. I would go back in here, lay down, you know, I was sitting up, like I was trying my best to get through the contractions. Like I was trying my best. At this point, I just was like, you know, I can't do it. I can't do it. I didn't want to do the epidural because birth isn't a medical emergency. I just was super worried about how that would impact my child. So I was contracting for days at a time, and I was so tired. I hadn't gotten any sleep. And at that point, I just was wore down. I talked to my mom about it. I was very transparent about how I was upset with myself for even wanting to be epidural. And she reassured me, you did the best you could. You know, do what you have to do, you know, basically to bring my grandchild into the world safely. At that point, I just couldn't do it anymore. I went as far as I could. My fiance took me as far as I could. I went as far as I could for it being my first child. I get to the hospital and I immediately let them know I need an epidural. Like this is becoming too much. Like I can't take it. It was so much pain. It's like it became even more intense than when I was at 3 centimeters, and I thought it was too much at 3 centimeters. So even throughout my pregnancy, you know, I tried to restruct my mind on that P word. Instead of it being pain, it's pressure. Not knowing what a contraction feel like, to the point where you can't even describe what a contraction feels like. You can't describe it at all. There's no description for it. You can say it's pressure in your vagina, you can feel it in your back. It's like when I went to use the restroom, there was pressure with me trying to, you know, urinate. There was so much pressure. It was so much pressure. I forgot to also note that on the 4th, I also had diarrhea on and off as well. So that's how I also knew that he was going to be born. So we get to the hospital. They bring me in. My aunt called while I was having a contraction, and she heard me yelling in the background. She called my cell phone. Of course, I couldn't answer. My fiance answered, and she was like, I'm on the way immediately. So at that point, I could relax on, you know, freeing my mind and getting myself ready for him to be here. I wasn't feeling my contractions. And I did tell him I didn't want any Pitocin. So I didn't do Pitocin or whatever. It was smooth sailing from there. So it was time to push. I had him. I did not tear at all. It was a very out of body experience, a very euphoric moment to, you know, see something that you had been growing, someone that you had been bonding with, that you don't know, that you've never met, that you love so unconditionally, to see them finally enter the world and to be placed like on your chest. He was so warm and he was so calm when he came out. His eyes were open. He was so alert. He did not have any vernix on his body at all. Like he didn't have any vernix. There was no white coating whatsoever. We did not get him bathed. They did not bathe him in the hospital. I didn't allow that. Eye ointment, I didn't want all that in his eyes. He stayed in the room with us the entire time. He only left the room once. His father was there when he left the room or whatever to get a testing done. We brought him home. He was 6 pounds and 15 ounces. And he was born on October 6th. I'm not going to say the exact time because I don't want y'all looking up my son's birth chart. Mind your business. When we did bring him home, I did have a moment of sadness. I definitely cried. I talked to my fiance, let him know, like, I feel like I failed as a mother because I did not have him completely natural. I felt like I failed him. I didn't transition him into our realm the proper way. He reassured me that, does my son look like a failure? And I had to tell myself, no, my son doesn't look like a failure. That reassurance definitely helped me to see that I did not fail my son as a mother because I did get an epidural. Also, I didn't do the Pitocin until after I had him because I didn't want that Pitocin entering his body. Look up Pitocin and different complications and things associated with it. You would understand why. So I didn't get it until afterwards. Can you come changing? Oh, you smiling. You heard your daddy name. I feel like it was an eye-opening experience. I wouldn't change anything about it at all. You know, I definitely wish I did have him completely natural, you know, the water birth, or just natural completely without any medicine. But for my first round, it didn't go that way. However, my son is, you know, the light of my day, the apple of my eye. He is everything for me. He doesn't know it, but he saved me completely. Definitely appreciate you guys for listening to my birth story. I will be uploading at least 2 posts a week to my blog, thebrownperfection.com. Follow me on Instagram as well as Facebook, The Brown Perfection, basically the same name as this channel. And my Twitter is IamTBP. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more content. I will see you all in my next video. Bye.